really glad that we're doing this today. Thank you for being here. I wanted to do this for two reasons. One was I don't think that people understand the role of the critic that it's the end of the theatrical process. And I wrote this paper that talks about the 47 ways that the theater critic isn't a blogger with an opinion.
Yes, and because right now, because of the internet, the bloggers are en masse, and it's really difficult. I mean, I started out at a time before all that happened, so the theater critic was an important part of the process. Now there are just so many people online who have their opinions.
Yes.
And that is becoming a very difficult thing for the actual reviewer, yes, for the actual critic.
And the second reason I wanted to do is what I wanted to capture your knowledge and experience of being in the business for over half a century, yeah. And while I've only been in the business for 7 years as a critic and written a few hundred reviews, you have written thousands and thousands of reviews. And I'm always surprised when people want to come to Calgary or figure out the landscape of theater, and they don't come to you more often and go, give me the macro view, like, because you have so much information about what's been happening over the decades. And so I just wanted to be here to get your point of view, and because you're a knowledge keeper.
No. Well, let's see if I have it.
Well, shall we start with number one?
Number one, yes.
Number one, a theater review is an assessment. A review isn't an opinion, it's a diagnosis that stops short of prescribing a course of action or a cure. A review goes beyond opinion. A review is as analytics and reporting. It is not about the reviewer's personal approval or disapproval.
Yeah. When I first read that, but I spent over 50 years saying, this is just my opinion. I think what you're saying is that it is one person's look at the play. It is what we see is either very, very right or rather wrong about the play. And I think that's what you're saying, is that we're looking and like we're like the doctor saying, this is what's right about you, but we're not prescribing. We're not saying you have to change this, you have to change that.
Yes. And I think with the doctor analogy too, is that it's an educated analysis, right? As opposed to somebody coming to a doctor and then the doctor says, "Good for you, you're on time, like the skirt, next." You know, the focus is very different.
Yeah, and we have to know that when we're sitting down and writing the review, is that it cannot be, we'll say later on, written right away. Because when you're writing right away, your opinions are very specific. You've got to let this mellow out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
A theater review isn't a prescription. If changes happen as a result of a review, this is unintentional from the purpose of the analysis. The reviewer isn't requesting or demanding changes of the work from the creators. That's so important. We're making those observations, but we're not saying, change that, do it differently, do it the way I see it.
This is an important one. I think that people sometimes feel that when they give an opinion of something or a review of something, that they expect people to comply to what it is that they're saying. And we're very hands-off.
And being on the other side, I've directed plays where it's been reviewed and the cast say, well, should I change that? And you go, no. That person didn't approve of what you were doing or what we were doing, but hundreds of others might. So no, you do it exactly the way we prescribed it, yes.
Have you seen an actor change something independently and you had to talk
yes,
to them
absolutely,
afterwards?
yes.
Yeah, and say why?
Don't do it because that reviewer said, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is that tendency on the part of the actor to, they didn't like what I did, so I'll change it. No. because then it doesn't fit in with the entire way you were directing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. 3. A theatre review doesn't have a call to arms. The reviews have no agenda with the reader to influence or to take action of any kind beyond recommending attendance.
That's very true. And that's so difficult for actors and directors and theater people to understand, is that you're not out there, saying, you've got to change this. I didn't like it, therefore it's not good. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying, I looked at it this way, and this is how I saw it. Then let's move on. This is just one opinion. So take the other 20 opinions that you're listening to. Yes.
Yeah. I think this is a challenge for me sometimes. You're a long-form writer, and I have a truncated, shorter reviewing style. And the last line of my postcard reviews is one reason to see the play. And sometimes that's hard because I want everybody to go to the plays all the time and make up their own minds. And sometimes it's when things are crashing and burning, it's hard for me to say, no, go to this theater instead of this theater is what I want to say, but I don't. I want everybody to go to the theater all the time.
And I'm very fortunate because I have an editor who reads my reviews and puts the heading on it. And Michelle is very good. Even when I'm very negative, she finds a way of putting that negativity into the heading of the review that doesn't slam the play.
Right.
It doesn't, yes.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's very important.
Yeah. Well, I have an editor too, but he lives with me, so it's a different it's a different situation.
A theater review isn't sensorial. A theater review doesn't use its purpose to politicize, sway, or demand censorship of its readers. Yes, we're not trying to say, okay, pick at this theater.
Yeah, absolutely not. I think all theater is welcome. In fact, I would welcome more theater from different political points of view than the one that we see so obviously, which is the liberal left. I would love to see, a broadening of that to understand.
Yes, and it's tempting to politicize. It really is, because as you say, the theaters themselves tend to be on the left, and that's, I think, from day one, that was their position, was to be there. But they can sway more. And when you go to a play that is very anti-liberal, whoa, you're going, yikes, yes. And that's good. Yeah. And you want people to go out and see those plays. We all want discussion. We want people to leave the theater talking about the play that they've seen. If you leave that play in the parking lot, you've had a good experience, fine, but it's instantly forgettable. And I can't think of the number of times I've said that. Yes, I've enjoyed this, but it's instantly forgettable.
And then there are the plays that people discuss way after
the fact.
Yeah,
yes.
And that's always really exciting.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
The theater review isn't omniscient. A reviewer can never be an authority on all components. They may have specialized knowledge in one or several roles, but they do not consider themselves to be all-knowing. A review doesn't boast superiority on all levels of the craft. That's so important. We're not omniscient. And that's what people, that's wrong about so many of the bloggers, is that they have a little knowledge and that suddenly makes them omniscient. They know everything. And we know and take into consideration the fact that the director and the actors know way more than us about their particular craft. What we're looking at is what we see as a total. And so we zero in sometimes on specific actors, specific that pieces of direction. That's because the play is such, the performances are such that we are drawn to those. If we are remarking on that, it's because they stand out. It's not that because we're omniscient, because we know everything. It's because the direction or the acting have drawn us to those specific moments.
Right. But at the same time, we also still come from theater. We've worked in theater, we've lived in theater as well. So
yes.
we understand it from the other
from the inside,
exactly.
as well as the outside. Yes.
Yeah, which is huge. It's
again bringing that kind of knowledge that we have, having worked in theater for all those years. We bring that knowledge to our reviews. If you've never been involved in theater, it's difficult to comment on it. What you're doing is you're literally going back to what we said in our first one was, it's an opinion. And that's what so many bloggers are giving us, is their opinion, based on nothing. Based on nothing. It's just the way they reacted to the play.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's because they didn't like the specific play. Yeah.
I find it interesting that there's a trend also with some theater companies, because there are so few critics right now as well.
Oh, terrible.
Is that they're posting a lot of the audience responses.
Yes.
I was reading some the other day, and the audience response was something about the suits were lovely. As a a totality
absolutely.
of the play, and I thought, oh, isn't that too bad?
Yes, because imagine if you had been the director. Imagine if you'd been an actor, and that's what the audience member was impressed with. Yes.
Yes. I remember I took a friend to a show once, and I asked her what she thought at the end, and the first thing she said was, "That green dress was lovely."
Yeah. The one I get is, how did they memorize
all those lines?
That's their job.
Too funny. 6. A theater review is about place. A show occupies a space. The work sits in relation to other works. The reviewer has a deep knowledge of other work. The review is a macro view that looks at the many shows and places this performance in that space. They understand the mosaic or the Venn diagram where all the work sits. The production in this context.
That's a very, very important one. So many people say, and I do this. It's natural with me. If a new play, and I say, well, that's really just Oscar Wilde in this. That's really just Noel Coward. That's really just Shakespeare. That's really Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams. And you do that, and people go, well, people don't know those plays, Louis. That's not my fault that they don't know those plays. But I'm sure the director did. I'm sure that the writer did. I'm sure that the actors did. And so those are the people I'm talking to when I make those references. I say, I saw what you as a writer were doing. I saw what you as a director were doing. I saw what you as an actor were doing. And that's what's important. And I think that's what you mean by the play takes place in a time, and it's part of a long history of the theater.
Yeah, and sometimes the play in different time periods too. A play that was written in the 50s, and how does that relate to when it's playing currently today, and what does that do to the?
That's certainly, we just had recently with Tennessee Williams, A Streetcar Named Desire. Now that play is 50 years old. What does it have to say to a modern audience? It's the same thing with a Noel Coward. What does Blithe Spirit have to say to a modern audience? Or are we just looking at it as an old chestnut and it's such a fun thing to go to? That's what you have to look at when you're, and you start talking that way and people go, but you haven't told me about the play. You haven't told me about the plot, yes.
And sometimes the opposite, in the smaller theaters or at the fringe, somebody will write a play or, like a week before they put it up, and then you give a review of it, and it's like, this is like 27 other plays, right? It's just because
27 other plays. They're at this same festival.
So there's not that awareness of space and time and where that fits.
And many authors that are writing now have that in history of theater, and they're using those old plays, those classics. They're using them, and that's not wrong. That's absolutely not wrong, as long as you're not pretending that you invented the wheel.
Yes. I also find it interesting too, working as a dramaturg on new plays, is that playwrights will pull in elements from all different kinds of plays and then assume that the end piece is going to work. Sort of like making a soup with mashed potatoes and chocolate pudding and carrots, right? They put it all together and go, but these individual components, why did,
Why isn't the broth, at the end, yes.
Yeah. 7, a theater review is in external time. The reviewer is either seeing new work that has been previously produced or work that's in the canon. The show is placed in the context within this lineage.
And again, the poor old bloggers, because their scope is so limited, they're unaware that sometimes the play, as you say, is brand new, or it's very old, or it's part of a collection of work. It was done at a specific time in history when those plays were written. You have to know when a play was written. A play that is written, in this year is not the same as something was written in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And you have to know that. And a lot of people don't know that. And that shows in their review of a play, yes.
And also within the timeline of the playwright, often knowing the difference between the mature work of a playwright versus their initial, drafts or attempts can make a huge difference. And understanding what the arc is of that for a playwright and how that impacts the play and the audience.
Well, they always say that. Well, that's the early Coward as opposed to his later works. The early Williams as opposed to his Arthur Miller. There is a difference when they were the young playwrights and when they were the mature, older playwrights. I remember talking to Edward Albee when he wrote The Goat. And, like he said, I had to choose something as horrendous as that, because people aren't shocked anymore the way they were when I started writing. And that's something that has to be taken into consideration when you are looking at a playwright's canon, their work. And Tennessee Williams said that too. When he had small craft warnings, he said, before when I wrote, so many of the things that I wrote about that were secrets that the characters were keeping, those secrets have been, with these new characters, are out in the open for so long that I had to find some way for them to be hiding something else. Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
A theater review understands source documents. Work in the canon or in the public domain can be reinterpreted, altered, edited, spoofed, or reimagined. The reviewer understands how this show has been conceived from the original. And that was, as you were saying, with the Christie estate, they're very specific that you do her plays as written. It says that right at the beginning of the script when you got it, in big, bold letters, you do the play as written. Yes, there are certain things that her characters say that because it was in the 30s or 40s or 50s, that today is sensitive. Okay, in those cases, you might be able to alter it, but be very careful about altering anything major in the play. And that's very, very true.
Yeah, and I think as critics, we know when things have been reinterpreted or altered or edited or spoofed or reimagined, and also when it's maybe against copyright. And when it's
Yes, and you roll your eyes and you go, we know that you didn't get permission to do this.
Yes.
Please, yes, absolutely. And we take for granted that being in Calgary, they'll never, you don't know that. And I know that personally, that there are people who, will let the Neil Simon estate know that you're doing only two sections of Plaza, but then all three, and they go, no, you paid the rights, the royalties for this. You do all three of those one-act plays, yes,
Right.
unless you get permission, yeah.
And sometimes I think other people don't understand what the original piece was, so that when the adaptation comes along, they think that that's the first one. That's
Yes.
the first time, right?
And I mean, poor Shakespeare is the one who suffers the most with this. People try, and I think that that's great, is that we find different ways of attacking Shakespeare. But if you did that with every playwright, it would be very dangerous.
Yes.
And suddenly some people do that.
9. The theater review understands the timeline of the creative process. The reviewer knows how time and the placement of the show in the run affects the performance. A show will evolve over time, either in response to the audience or the solidification that happens with repetition.
Is what you're meaning, that because we see it opening night as opposed to 20 productions later?
Yes, I think, and also a touring production as well. We understand that something is, maybe initiated in a touring show, and we understand that we're seeing the 400th show
Yes.
versus
Especially when we're looking at Broadway across Canada.
Yeah.
We are seeing productions that have been done, as you say, for hundreds of versions of it, yes. And what I like when you see that is it feeling as fresh as it must have been a year ago? I was talking to the man who's doing the lead in the Michael Jackson musical that's coming, and he's been doing it for 3 years. You go, whoa. But he says, I enjoy it so much that each night it's a new performance for me. Yeah. And that I think is what, with the touring production, that you have to have, is that they have to give you the same feel that they must have had in that first week or two of their run. Yes.
Yes.
It can't look tired.
No.
And I've seen productions that look tired, and you go, recast it, do something, but don't send that to us. Yes.
Yeah, they're phoning it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a little different between the two of us, because I don't always get to the opening, just in terms of scheduling or whatever. And so sometimes I will see a show closer to the end of the run, and I think that's a different viewpoint as well.
And do you take that into consideration?
I do. Yeah, I realize that it's in a different place than it would have been when it was open.
And when as I say, when I see the opening night, and you go, okay, is that going to change? Yeah. And with some theaters, I go and see the final shows, one of the final shows, and to see if there is a big change. And sometimes there is, yes.
I think one of the things I noticed too is that the European model of rehearsal is sometimes much longer and facilitated differently than the North American version of, at least the professional theaters, which is 3 weeks in, get it on the boards, get it up, run for 2 weeks, close, go to the next. Whereas some of the models in Europe are, we have 6 months to develop this. We have,
It's going to be different.
And it's going to be different. And it's you can
Well,
get to a level.
That's the difference with the National Theatre in Britain. Yeah. They develop those plays, those rehearsals. Part of the rehearsals is part of the development of the script. And so, yes, by the time they open, they're very into it, yes.
Yes, and it's so lovely to see because every single moment is crisp and clear. Yeah, and not smudgy like
yes,
other ones.
When, as you say, you have a 2-week rehearsal, it's going to be smudgy. Yes.
Yeah, can't not be. 10. The theatre review understands development time. Reviews are written with the knowledge of whether the show is in development or not and what stage of development. The first draft reading versus the close of the world tour determines the lens of the viewer.
We saw that with Theatre Calgary, with some of its, when its world premieres. And that's an exciting thing to see a play as a world premiere. But you know that play, given 2 or 3 different productions in different theaters, would be a different experience. But when you go to see that, the excitement is, I'm seeing something brand new. Brand new for the actors, brand new for the directors, brand new for the audience. This is something that we're all experiencing for the first time.
Yeah, I think for me personally, that's one of the most exciting things when I don't know anything about it. And I think there's also a tendency for theatre companies to want to give away too much behind the scenes of this, and this is how this was developed, and there's too much preview stuff, so that when you go and see it, some of there's been spoilers, right? That it's like,
That's why I try desperately not to watch previews for movies, because nowadays the trailer gives away 2/3 of the movie. You get the best jokes, you get the whole story, and you go and you wait, and you're waiting for a scene that you've seen in a preview. If there's too much discussion of a play before it opens, if you know too much of what you're going to see, that takes away from it. As you say, knowing absolutely nothing, and you're sitting there, wow, you are really discovering it for the first time with the actors and the directors. That discovery is part of the joy of that experience, yes. And this is what I say to people, come to the opening weekend of a play, because that's when the actors are discovering what works for an audience. That opening night of a play, of a production, is so exciting because they've never had an audience before. They don't know where the laughs are. By the 10th or 11th time, they know, okay, I'm going to say this line and I'm going to get a laugh. It may be a huge laugh, it may be a small laugh, but it's going to get a laugh. Opening night, you don't know that. And so there's an excitement. You can feel it on stage and in the audience. You know when the actors go, oh, you like us. It's like the Sally Field thing. You like me, then I'll give you more. Yes.
I think the caveat to that is sometimes the audience changes, and that so if you have a seniors matinee, for example, versus an evening show or a kid show, the audience changes, and then
then the actors go, whoa, how come? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and as reviewers, we understand what it means for the audience to be seeing that for the first time.
Yes. Because, as you're saying, the audience is seeing it for the first time, no matter whether they're seeing the first night or the last night. The audience, are seeing it for the first time.
Yes. Yeah.
So the reaction is real. Yes.
11. A theatre review is one placement in continuum. Reviews are written with an understanding of things in relation to each other. They understand the order of plays in the season, the unfolding of the theme of the season, the history of the shows that pertain to the history of the company. They understand when a show deviates or typifies the mandate or the vision of a company. They understand that they understand the premiere versus the rolling premiere. It's a lot of things to consider there that we don't always think about if we don't understand what the history of what that theatre company is doing.
And that's why it's important to know the theatre company. Theatre Calgary is a very different beast than Vertigo Theatre. Vertigo Theatre has a very specific audience because they are offering a very specific kind of play. Theatre Calgary has to give a much wider, much broader kind of play selection because they have a different kind of audience. Yes, it's very important to know, as you say, and the first play of the season is the one that's going to grab the audience. So you look at why did that theatre company present that play first and that play last? And the one you're leaving the audience with, that's when they're buying their or renewing their season's tickets. So you've got to give them a play that they're going to like, because that's when they're renewing their season's tickets. So, being an artistic director is a very difficult position. You've got to choose your plays very carefully.
Yes. And the audience, too, comes expecting a type of play. And sometimes when they get a different type of play, they have a different response to it, whether positive or negative. That really influences the review as well.
And at what time of year? The plays that people come to see at Christmas, you've got to be very careful that holiday season. They want to laugh. They want to be happy. They don't want, at that time of the year, to have a real downer. That's not when you put your heaviest play. You put your heaviest play in the beginning of the new year. That's when people are, okay, you're going to hit me with the big shot. You're going to really knock it to me, yes.
Or the new play, right?
Or the new play,
yeah,
yes.
That's we sandwich that in there.
Yes. Absolutely. Because people are willing at that time of the year. They're not so willing at the holiday period. They want to be entertained. And you look to see what theatre companies are playing this year at their Christmas, their holiday selection, and it's all family-oriented plays.
Yeah.
12. The theatre review is in context to internal time. The reviewer understands how time jumps affect the story with linear or non-linear passages in the play. The reviewer understands how this is facilitated differently will affect the performance or individual productions.
Yes, I find it so interesting with new works sometimes about how things are overlooked. It's like we needed that transition there to get that ending that you wanted us to go, to arrive at. And I think that's one of the things that I see with new playwrights. And understanding how there's you can either have a play that's with the primary arc with subplot A, subplot B, subplot C, or you have more like a tree where there's branches that sort of go off in different directions. There's different ways of telling different stories.
And that's when you see how a director is so important to a production. Because it is the director who decides how that is going to happen. And when you have a play that is predominantly very serious, but a good director knows how to put humor in there as well. Because that will, it's like Shakespeare always had the dramatic, the comedy.
The porter.
Right, the porter scene in Macbeth. So that you have that relief and then you can go on. And a good director will do that, will look for ways to find humor even in the most serious plays. Otherwise, there's the audience sitting, they don't dare laugh because it's too serious. But if the director knows how to make it obvious that, yes, you're allowed to laugh even in a serious play.
And how do you think directors deal with, generally, with non-linear storytelling and the way that we review that?
again, I think it's the director who allows us to do that with the nonlinear storytelling. Because as a reviewer, you're looking, okay, there is a through line somewhere in here, but you're jumping all over the place. It's non-linear. Is it working? Is it working? Or are we just tuning off after a while? Yes.
Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head. I think one of the ways that happens the most that I see is in flashbacks. Flashbacks often are going back and getting information that should have been in the exposition so that we're seeing it in time with that energy behind it. And I think sometimes it's interesting to look at the audience, because in a flashback, if the audience is in the flashback for too long, they sort of sit back and then they wait for the information to be imparted, and then we pick up
they
with
can go back
to the
to
the story.
It's like getting off of the bus tour or and to going to the washroom and then getting back on the bus tour. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what a flashback does. So you have to be very careful as a writer that you don't use them very often.
Yeah.
But sometimes, as you were saying, we need that information. And a good director will have those flashbacks in a way that are entertaining and will not allow the audience to go back and stare at the lights in the ceiling. And yeah, exactly. Yeah.
13. The theater review has an awareness of design and designers. The review will differentiate and assess the input of the sound, the lights, set, projection, costume design. These assessments come in the form of design versus outcome. The design can enhance, disrupt, or distract from the piece.
That's very important. You want to, if the music is too obvious, then that distracts from the play. If the costumes are way too flamboyant, you go, why? Real human beings would not dress that way. So are you trying to tell us something? As a reviewer, that's the choice of that dress is trying to tell us something. Or is it just that you had that costume and wanted to wear it? You know what I mean? That kind of, what are you trying to say with that?
Yes. And also, I think sometimes designers, as much as I love and admire their work, sometimes they show off. And it actually becomes the focus of the play rather than the experience of the whole.
If the design takes away from the play itself, if you're, as you say, too aware of a design part of the play, then that's wrong.
Yeah.
Then that's wrong. It should, you at the end you should go, oh, you know what? That sound was really good. But not if you're going to, wow, there comes that sound again. Yeah. It's at the end you say, it was so intrinsic to the success of the play. And that's, as a reviewer, when you point that out, that's what you're pointing out. Yes.
Yeah, the anomalies, when it's cohesive and when it's startling sometimes.
Yeah. I'm thinking, because I just wrote the review recently of Lunchboxes, her in the woolen dress. We know that was not real wool that she was wearing, but it was made to look at, and that was intrinsic and vital to the play. His shoes that he was obsessing about either you caught that early on yourself, or as soon as he pointed it out, that became a focal point. You get what? And when he finally took them off, he said, "Thank heavens, because I was watching those darn shoes." Yes, that's again such good costuming when it's so much a part of the play.
Mm-hmm. And with the lighting as well too. Sometimes there's a lighting effect that's breathtaking because it's part of the play, and sometimes it's like, what?
Why did you do that?
What is that doing? Why is the disco ball coming in?
I remember a play that I saw. What are they doing? And it wasn't until the very end that you realize that every time they changed those lighting, they were in a different. There was a ghost thing. It was and you know what play I'm talking about. And it was too late by then. Yeah, is either you don't do it, or you let us know right away that that's imagination, that you're lighting an imagination.
Yeah.
But to tell us that in the last 5 minutes of the play, you go, oh, that's what that was all about. I thought that they had a dimmer that wasn't working.
Yes, yes. I think that's also a challenge for new playwrights as well, is that they want to keep the cards close to their chest, and they don't understand that the audience that knows more is more entertained because they're waiting for things to happen. It's only in mystery that you hold back information. But when the audience is going, oh, wait for it, they're hiding in the closet and they don't know they're there, or the monster is here or whatever, but the audience has to know about the monster ahead of time. They have to know what the device
and
is.
that's letting the audience know more than the characters is always so much fun. Is the audience is ahead of the characters and they're waiting for something to happen. Yes.
Yes. The caveat being is when we just can't wait to get to the end of the play because we're just like, okay, let's wrap it up now.
Yeah. We know where this thing's going. Do we have, oh my gosh, we got 20 more minutes before this happens. Yes. Number 14. A theater review is an awareness of the zeitgeist. Plays can be in step or out of step. All plays are either to some degrees relevant or irrelevant to happenings in the present time. The context of the awareness of the politics, the current research, the popular culture, norms, and traditions of the audience form a background of the review.
Yes, and sometimes it's incredibly relevant and sometimes it's not.
And that, again, that's the director, that's the theater company, that's the artistic director. You've chosen this play, okay? The play was written in the 1920s or 30s, or it was written in the last century. You're playing it for us today. You've got something that you want to say. I mean, you're not just going to throw that play up there unless you're doing it as an old chestnut. And that's fine. Theatre Calgary did Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, and they did it as the old chestnut. They did Blithe Spirit as the old chestnut. They weren't trying to make some comment on today's society. They weren't trying to say, how do we look at poltergeists today, as Vertigo is doing with Brothers Paranormal. That's a very different thing. So you can do that, but if you're going to do a play, and we're going to see later with The Doll's House, now when that play was written, it was way ahead of its time. It was making comments about women that shocked its audiences. We're not shocked today. We expect that. We understand that. So is this new production going to have something new to say to us? Are we going there for a reason? And that's up to the artistic director and the director to make that play work for a modern audience.
And just building on what you said, the zeitgeist around the attitudes towards women in some cultures is going backwards. And so the play has a different resonance for different populations at different times as well.
Totally. I remember when they did Hamlet, and Hobson was saying that the audience that came to see that, because of the young man, the ethnic audience that came, they didn't know that play at all. And so their reaction was almost what Shakespeare was wanting when he wrote that, was they were horrified, yes.
Yeah. And the brilliance and the relevance. There's so many people who want to, push Shakespeare to the side.
He's talking to us today as he was talking to his audiences all those years ago. Please, yes.
Yeah, and can be adapted and spun out and
his plays can be made to say as much to us today as they said to their audiences when they were written. Absolutely.
Yeah. 15. A theatre review is a lens. The reviewer also, consciously or unconsciously, brings to their review their bias, politics, and history to the show. They separate their point of view and supplement it to the point of view of the art of the stage. This is the biggest challenge, I think, for me as a
Totally, me too.
as a reviewer.
This certainly was with my review of Dial M for Murder. I reviewed what I thought the play was going to be instead of reviewing what the play was. I went with a whole, I was expecting something that didn't happen. And that, suddenly I reviewed what didn't happen. And as a reviewer, you can't do that because that's not what the play, that's not what his purpose was.
It's interesting, though, because if we look at something that gets altered a great deal, for example, if we're going to go specifically to Sleuth at Vertigo, where it was written as a two-hander, I was expecting a two-hander, and then I got a three-hander. The shock of that and the response of that was very different for a reviewer who understands what the original piece is.
I can remember that I couldn't do that second act because I was focusing on the fact that they'd added the third character, and you're going, but that's not how it was written. That's not the whole point of the show.
Yeah.
And again, why do directors want to tamper with classics? And what they say, what the point of view was that it was such an old play, let's try something different with it. Then don't do it. If you don't want to do the play as was written, then don't do it. Mm-hmm. Don't suddenly try and bring in all these other elements to jazz it up. If you can't make it work as written, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Find somebody who can make it work. Yes. Yeah. Who wants to make it work. Yeah. Again, there's that thing where you don't go to a director and say, here, do this play for us. You go to the director and say, would you like to do this play? Is this play something you'd like to do? And with directors, don't do plays that you don't like because it's obvious. I mean, I've seen plays and I go, the director didn't want to do that. That was a gun for hire. That wasn't a director who was committed to that play.
Yes. I think I see that sometimes with British plays as well. There's a tendency to think about British plays as coming from a place of everybody knows that, so we don't have to do it right.
Oh, right. And you're very right, yeah. And that's not only the British plays, but Italian plays and French plays. Again, you only give them to directors who understand those plays.
Yeah.
You don't give British sex farce to a director who doesn't understand that genre. Because when you go to it, you're going, but that's not the way it would have been done in Britain.
Yeah.
And that's why when we do the pantomimes at Christmas here in Calgary, that's not the way they're done in Britain. Mm-hmm. So either you have an American one and do it, or don't do the British ones, or find somebody who understands what the pantomime is all about.
Which is hard for the audience because the audience doesn't understand the role of the audience in pantomime, which is the callbacks and the things that, that culture is used to.
I mean, I've only been to London 3 times over the Christmas holidays, and those times I did go to see pantomime, and the audience was it was louder than I have ever listened to an audience. I mean, but they, as you say, they knew the callbacks. They were prepared for that. It's a tradition. We don't have that tradition here.
Yeah.
So you find something else to do at Christmas. And we see that that's what we do in Calgary, is that we do plays that work for a family audience rather than doing the real pantomimes.
Yes.
Number 16, A theatre review has subject neutrality. A play is about people doing and saying things. The subject may not be inherently interesting to the reviewer. The critic ignores this for the sake of the assessment. That's a very difficult one, going to a play that you're not really interested in the subject matter. And there's many of them that I have, and you go, oh dear, I've got to go and see this play, and I really don't like this. Yeah. And that's difficult to sit through, but as a critic, you have to put all that behind you and look at the production again. How did they do it? Did it work? That's your job, not whether it agrees with your views.
I like to go and see theatre that disagrees with what my views are. I find that very exciting, and that's thrilling to me. I think what happens a lot of the time is that playwrights are writing from theme, and so they want to tell us something specific, and we get that message and we get hit over the head with it.
But it is the velvet sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Yes. You go, okay, I got that in the first half hour. Now tell me something different from the next 90 minutes. Yes.
Right. But it's new to them. And so they think that they're, again, it's usually with new plays a lot of the time, like the fringe shows or the self-production shows where you're going, I'm really excited about this. I'm 20 years old and I just discovered blah, blah, right? And
Yes.
you're going, oh, okay, I'm glad you're excited about that. Know your audience. If you're going to be inviting people over 20, they might have a different response to it.
And also, don't put all of your views or your insights in the first 15, 20 minutes. Spread them out. Give it to us gently. Don't top load your play, because by the 90-minute mark, the audience is dying to get out of there because it's been rehashed and rehashed and rehashed. You're saying the same thing in different ways. Yes.
Yes. Well, the only review that I wrote that I didn't ever upload or publish was one that I didn't think was beneficial to anybody to read, because at the end I felt like we were all being held hostage and just being yelled at, which was not theatre.
Yeah. But as you say, that's the problem with new playwrights, new directors. They haven't got that. They haven't been tempered with time. Yeah, and you can tell when a director knows. Yes, I'm dealing with a lot of heavy subject matter, but I know I have to give my audience time to digest this. Don't pour it down their throats. What is it? Mary Poppins says, a little sugar makes the medicine go down. Yes. And that's what a good director understands. Yeah. And yes, I've seen so many plays where it's just, they want so badly to say something, and it just time after time after time in that play, you're going, but you've said this already, don't hit me over the head. Yeah.
Yes. 17. The theatre review has theme neutrality. The reviewer may disagree with the theme. The reviewer understands the difference between plays that come from theme, Love Conquers All, or agenda. Democrats are evil.
Yes, and again, I think as a reviewer, as a critic, you see where the play is going very quickly, and then you have to temper your whole reaction to it. You're sitting in that audience, and if you allow anger to be your focus, okay, this I've heard this before so many times, then your review is going to show that. What you have to do is you have to turn that off, and then again, you have to forget the theme, you have to forget what the morals that you're being given, and you have to watch it as a production.
Yeah, a total experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult to do, and you see that in a lot of young reviewers. They turn into critics, and the word critic comes from the word criticize to them. So right away, it's everything negative and that's easy Being negative is so easy. Being positive is very difficult. I find it very difficult to write a review of something that I absolutely love, because you tend to gush, and then you go, ooh, no, I sound so silly gushing like that.
I love writing those reviews. I find the other ones harder to write.
The negative
The negative ones, they take me twice as long to write. And I also think I also think that you're much more of a positive reviewer overall than I am. I often think that you're the good cop and I'm the bad cop.
That goes way back to a course, summer course I took from Mildred Dunnick in theater criticism, and she said, as a critic, before you say one negative thing, you have to find 10 positive things to say about a play. And she said, if you do that, if you force yourself to look for positive things, then you won't be as negative. But it's so easy when you walk out of a play and you're angry because it said something that you didn't like, or the direction wasn't what you wanted, or the actors did the characters not the way you wanted, and you're walking home and you're just, it's in you and you're just ready and you're going to sit down to your typewriter and bang away at that. That's going to be a very negative review. And she said, you're going to regret that. You are going to regret that review, because you'll read it in a year's time and you go, did I really say those? Oh my gosh, And she also, one of her things was that before you say that about a person, would you want that said about you? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that do unto others as you would have them do. And it's true. There's ways of saying negative things about direction and acting and set. There's ways of saying that isn't hurtful.
Yes. And I do try not to be hurtful. I just think that that's a muscle that you've developed over decades that after 7 years isn't as strong with me.
Not yet, eh?
Not yet. But I'm aware it's a muscle I need to build up.
The theater review understands genre. How the genre either remains true, wobbles, or crosses over to other genres intentionally or not. And that is so important, is that you go to a play, and we can use Vertigo as an example. That's the mystery theater. That's the whodunit theater. And suddenly they're trying plays there that are not really the genre that people are expecting. And so you go there and you go, is this really a mystery play? Is this really a whodunit? And as an audience member, as a critic, you have to completely take that out of your head. All right, okay, it's out of their genre, so how are they making it work for their theater? Yes.
And also, how does the genre change, or how does sometimes a director superimpose their idea of a different genre onto another piece, which is sometimes really painful when you know that this is supposed to be a drama, it's being directed like a slapstick, or it's a slapstick and it's being directed like a drama.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one thing to put a little slapstick in to that, but to make the whole thing slap, you go, but that's not the way it was written. That's not the genre. And it's so very important, the difference between like comedy and farce. Okay? There's a huge difference. And if you're going to have a comedy, then don't let it go into the farce. I mean, it can have elements of farce very, very gently, but don't let it slide right into farce, because then you're doing two different plays at the same time. And I've seen that happen way too many times.
Yeah.
And I think where that happens is when the actors or the director are doing a farce or doing a comedy, and they want it to be funny. So they're playing funny. And that's not how it's written. The humor comes out of it being ordinary, natural, and the audience sees the humor in the situation. if the actors see too much humor in the situation, then it becomes silly. Then it's see me, I'm funny, and that's dressing up in costume and going out for Halloween.
Yes. Yeah, I think when you use the word situation there, so often sitcom becomes a lesser genre, and people think that, oh, it's devalued somehow. But when the humor is coming from the situation, that's the most important thing.
And if a sitcom is done well, and again, it being that they are real people caught in an unreal or an exaggerated situation, that's funny. But if the people themselves are trying to be funny, then it isn't funny.
Yes.
It isn't, because then they're not real people. We can't identify with them. Whereas if they're real people, we go, yep, that would be me. That's how I would react. And that's what you find funny.
Yes. It's sometimes hard to review things that jump genres, and part of that is the surprise. And so I find it hard to write the review because, it was all a dream, for example, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Well, that's the lunchbox theater one I'm talking about. When you get to the end of the show, and that's when they tell you that those were all dream sequences. You go, oh, wow, now I want to see it again. No, I don't want to see it again. But you know what I mean? You go, I should have known that somewhere along the way so I could watch those scenes and see that they were, imagination and not real.
Yeah. And that goes back to the playwright wanting to keep the cards
too close to their
chest.
Yeah. Don't leave us stranded until the last minute. Yes.
Yeah. 19. The theater review comes from inside the arena. The reviewer is a participant in the theater community. The reviewer is a professional who understands both sides of the footlights. They have backgrounds as actors, playwrights, directors, stage managers, designers, producers, and dramaturgs. A reviewer or critic lives within the theater community, not outside of it.
And that's really important. When I was starting, the whole thing was, should he be allowed to be a reviewer when he's so much involved with the craft? But that's the whole point.
Yes.
When a person has never seen how a play goes together, doesn't have any understanding of the process, you can't be fair to the actors and the director and the designers, because you don't know what's going into it. But because you do know what's going into it, the thing you have to be very careful is not to then be the director, be the actor, be the designer, not be the professional. You are not any of those things. You are the reviewer. You're an entirely different organism.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the blogger, we often see people giving their opinions on things and not understanding the mechanics of something, or the intent of something, or the design of something, or the intellect of the script, or, because they've never written a script or been a stage manager or understand the difference between, what it means to have a costume versus day wear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When an actor goes on stage, those are not day wear. Those are costumes. And to have a real costume designer come in and say, those shoes do not work for this, and you go, but they're my shoes and they're they don't work for this character. Yeah. And that's very important. People who do costume, who do sets, who do lighting, who do sound, they're looking at the whole play. They're saying, how does that costume fit in with the production?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. I often see plays as a piece of moving machinery, and I come from a family of mechanics and people who dealt with complex pieces of moving machinery, and that's often how I see theater. It's a lot of bytes of information, and it's a lot of things seamlessly, and cogs and things that are working with each other to create a whole engine that runs.
Well, that's a good analogy. a production is a timepiece, and all those little things working together to make the whole. Yes, absolutely. Your watch doesn't run properly if one piece of it isn't working.
Yes.
And that's the way a play is. One miscast actor can derail the production.
Yes.
A sound man, the music used in the production can derail a production.
Yes.
It's so important to find a really good sound person, to find the right sound, the right music for your play.
Yeah.
Because it says a great deal. It's not just a song thrown in, a piece of music thrown in. No, and you know that when that piece of music has just been thrown. Why did they use that? What are they trying to say, for heaven's sakes? Yeah.
Yes.
A theatre review is authored. A review isn't anonymous. It has credence. A reviewer stands by their review, associating their name and their brand to the review. And I've learned this over the years. I mean, when I was certainly reviewing movies, and more so, because people come and say, if you like a movie, I'm not going. But what they've told you is they understand you. They know that you don't agree with what they like. You don't like what they're using you. You are a valuable tool to them. And that's what a reviewer should be. That's what a real critic should be, is a valuable tool to the reader. And that's why the difference between Calgary, when I was reviewing movies, and Toronto, where they had 4 reviewers. You had 4 different opinions. So you were waiting, okay, I agree with this person, but I don't agree with that person. But this person is reviewing this movie this time. And so with us now, we're being the only reviewers here in Calgary, people come and say, okay, if she likes it, I don't. That's a compliment. That's a compliment, because what the person is saying is, I understand your reviews. I understand the way you look at a production.
I also think it's important that they not be anonymous, because I feel like sometimes the anonymous review is like a sniper. They're just hidden and they snipe away, and then they still move among us and we don't know who they are.
And there's too many of those.
There's way too many of those.
Too many of those, yeah.
Right.
And why are they anonymous? I think they're anonymous because they're involved in the theater and they don't want people to know who they. Eventually people will find out, for heaven's sake, and then that makes it even worse. So put your name on a review. And what you're saying by putting your name on the review is, this is my opinion and I stand by it. Yes.
Yeah. 21. A theatre review is public. It isn't intended just for friends or closed communities of people. It allows for democratic access.
That's very important. I know people who write for their friends, okay? But they're not really reviewing. They're giving. It's like you say, somebody, did you like that play? Yep. Good. You don't have to say why you liked it or why you didn't like it. You just, yep, okay. That's a review for people you know. And you can throw in, I like the costumes, I like this actor, yeah, that's fine. But if you're going to review, then you put your name on it and you put it out there publicly for everyone. And then people can discuss that review. And I mean, I love it when people come and say, I don't agree with you, Lee, on that at all. I don't agree with you. You missed this and you missed that. Then you say, okay, and then there's a dialogue.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's hard as print is leaving us, right? And how do we access in the old way? How do we access that review from the critic who's knowledgeable, who's public? Because everything is so diffused now through social media platforms and through different.
It's a whole different ball game now. It really is.
Yeah.
And I think that we've lost something valuable, which is the theatre criticism. I think of the British theater critics that I used to do. I didn't even see the plays that they were talking about, but I loved their reviews. I loved reading. They were so insightful. They were so insightful.
Yeah.
But they were writing, 2,000 words on the opening of a play, and 500 words, and that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of the reasons that I decided to invest in postcardreviews.com is to make something more public, more accessible to people.
More accessible, yeah.
Yeah.
That was always, there was a magazine in Britain called Time Out, and they had short reviews. And you know what? I used to buy that magazine especially for those theater reviews, because what it was a very compact, and you got what you were reading for. We used to, in the papers, when I was reading, we used to have stars at the end. People used to read the headline and look at the stars, and so we've cut that out now with that. And what people don't understand, they'll come and say, "But you said so." No, I didn't. The editor wrote that heading on my review. That was the editor was saying, "This is what he's saying." I didn't say that, but yes.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference. Yeah. That was the editor that was her opinion of what my opinion was. Yeah.
Yeah. 22. A theater review risks consequences. A reviewer risks truth-telling and the subsequent consequence or backlash over their own career.
Yes, and and something that, again, it took me a very long time to learn was that, you say these things not casually, but more casually than people think. And then, 2 years down the line, you'll get an actor who'll come and say, I really was offended when you said that, and I'd forgotten I'd even said that. Most of the time, I forget what I've said within 2 or 3 weeks. Completely forgotten whether I even liked the production or not. But you have to remember that you're dealing with real people, and they don't take it as casually as you do.
Yeah. It's definitely a challenge as somebody who works in the community, to review theaters that I want to have relationships with. It's
Yes.
a very fine line to walk, but I always have to come down on the side of what I really think. And sometimes there's a cost for that, and I've decided that cost is okay for me. I'd much rather be honest and true to what I see and my response than, make it work.
Wishy-washy.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? I always say that, when actors and directors and designers react really negatively to what I've said, I always say to them, give it 6 months and we'll be closer to each other.
Yeah.
And I know that from a fact. I mean, I've been in the kitchen and I know what the heat is like. So, yeah. And it's so funny. I mean, I remember the worst lines from the worst reviews I ever got. I don't remember the best lines from the reviews that I've gotten. I don't. But I remember those really negative things. So I understand what actors and directors and designers are talking about when they say they were offended by what was said. Yeah.
Yes. And as somebody who also has been reviewed, I remember it was an anomaly. I had 3 shows opening in Calgary within 3 days of each other. And I had 6 reviews, and all 6 were negative. And I was devastated. And I was really worried about what people were going to think. And people were treating me like, my mother died. How are you doing? Are you okay? And I felt the pity and the shame of people. And I basically stepped away from the whole thing for 18 months, which was, way too long to
Ridiculous.
stay away from it. And also, I like reading the reviews of the earlier stuff because now I go, oh yeah, you're right. Like,
As I said,
you're 100% right.
Give me 6 to 8 months, and we'll be closer on what we feel.
Yeah.
I may have to come up a little. You have to come down a little. Yeah. I really believe that, and as I say, that's because I've been on the other side of the curtain.
Yeah. Yeah. Which goes back to that's what critics really are. Understanding. Yeah.
A theater review risks wrath. Audiences and other theater practitioners have their own opinions and may engage with the reviewer in their displeasure. Moreover, the reviewer risks being unliked. And that's what we were talking about. It's a very tricky thing. And I think most of the directors and designers and actors in the city know not to talk to me about their reviews right after they come out. Because all of us are a little more, we're ready to fight. And so, but give time, and then we can talk about it. Whether I was way out in left field, or whether I was closer to what they now feel. Yes, and we all know deep down whether we're good, bad, or mediocre.
Do we?
I think
Mostly.
most times. Yeah. Most times, yeah. There are times when we have an inflated opinion of ourselves, yes. But that balloon bursts very easily, very easily.
Yeah.
And that comes with age, and experience, and time.
Yeah. And it helps not to be a people pleaser if you're a reviewer, because you're not going to please people. That's not the goal of it.
No, even the people you're reviewing and give good review. I remember somebody coming to me and say, "But Louis, that was one of my worst performances, and you liked it." So if you're being too gushy, they know.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
Be honest. Yeah.
Exactly.
They know that. People love honesty. It may hurt, but they love honesty.
I think they respect it. I don't think.
Okay, respect it. That's better. Yeah. They don't love it.
They don't love.
They'd rather have the gushing.
Yes, especially initially. 24. The theater review pulls focus. The reviewer has the ability to focus their attention on the whole stage, a part of the stage, or a micro action. Just as a camera lens in a film pans out, pulls focus, and goes in for a close-up, so the reviewer has this ability. The reviewer also is aware of the action in the pit, the fly, the ramps, the wings, and the house.
And that's really important, because the reviewer is a bit like the director. It sees the whole picture. And when you're directing a play, especially early on, the actors come to you and say, "But I don't feel good in this. I want to do this. But you're going, let me direct the whole play. What you're seeing is just one little piece of it. I'm seeing the whole thing." And that's what you do as a reviewer. You see the whole thing. And that's even for the sake of the director. You're seeing what their vision, whether it worked or didn't work on stage.
And also from a technical point of view too. I mean, having spent 9 years in stage management, knowing when it's a missed cue versus, or a mistake versus this was intentional or this was not intentional, those kind of things.
And you're aware when an actor covers up so well.
Yes.
Really, yeah. I call it the third eye, with an actor having that eye on top of their head, looking around, and you're still in character, you're still doing the whole, but you're, that curtain is not where it's supposed to be and so you change it. Or somebody forgot a piece of a prop on stage, you take it off in character. And this idea of never allowing the audience to know that there is a mistake. Never. That's wonderful. And as a reviewer, you're going, yep,
Yeah.
you
You
did
saved it.
You
got
saved it, yeah.
Or you didn't.
Or you didn't save
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I saw you acknowledging that was a mistake.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas, was that intentional or wasn't that? And it's wonderful if as a reviewer, you don't know if that was intentional or not.
Yeah.
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 A theater review understands financial costs. The reviewer understands the impact of finances on a production and how that is used to its fullest or how it becomes a barrier to excellence. A theater that has funds may squander or misdirect them. An indie production may have a very low budget, and the reviewer will assess how this use of the money was to affect the success of the production. And that's so true. I just interviewed the man who wrote Brothers Paranormal, and he said he has seen every major production of that play in the States. And it's gone from theaters who had tons of money to theaters who had a very small budget. And there's that whole ghost thing that is so vital to the success of that production. And he says even the theaters that had small budgets were able to make the audience gasp and sometimes scream. And that's when you want to give that theater all the credit in the world. And we see that so often in the indie theaters where they have absolutely zilch to work with, and yet they make magic happen. And that's what a director and a company does. They make magic happen with their ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's equally infuriating when there's a $2 million budget and you blew it all on X when it really should have been on Y. And what were you thinking?
We've seen that way too often with our major theaters, where they've spent the money on the wrong thing, absolutely the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I mean, productions where we've gone, all that money, and it's not on the stage. And that's what especially with our companies that do have money, and companies that get grants, and you go and you say, all right, I want to see that money on that stage. And sometimes we don't. We really don't. It's one thing to have gorgeous costumes and gorgeous set, but if your acting is flawed, if your directing is flawed, if you haven't really, we can't see the work that went into producing that, then that money was really not well spent.
I think that happens in casting sometimes too. You pay for the name or the person to come in, and really, are there better actors in Calgary that we could have brought in or we could have used? Absolutely.
We see that way too often, and I won't mention companies we're not going to, but yes, you're importing actors, and we have better actors right here. The opposite happens when you bring in an actor from Stratford or something to do a specific role, and you probably know which one I'm referring to, and she was magnificent. You go, every penny you spent bringing that woman in was worth it, because she made the play sparkle. And as one of these actors that you're bringing in from another, that should be uppermost in their mind. I'm coming in at a bigger expense. I better show this community that I'm worth every penny that they've spent on me. Yeah. And that is the actor's job.
Sadly, sometimes they come in and they think that Calgary is the backwoods, and they don't give it their all, right?
Yeah.
They're just getting the paycheck, which is...
Yeah, we get that too often from the Toronto actors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet, we have actors who make them pale by comparison.
Yeah. 26. The theatre review understands emotional and mental costs. The critic is aware of the investment and outcomes of the artist in relation to the performance or the production. Yes,
and again, that we were just talking about that. a director, actors, design, they all invest so much in a production. Not always, and then we can see that. We can see that they are not investing their 100%. And as soon as you are aware that they're not investing 100%, it's so hard as a reviewer because you pull back and you go, you've done better, and you're capable of much better. You're phoning it in. And when we see that, it's so hard to review that production without being cruel, yes.
And sometimes we know too much information, which is, oh, your dad died last night, and you're here on this stage doing the play about the dead dad, right? And what does that cost you? What is that doing to you? What does that mean to your performance?
Yes, absolutely. And when an actor, we saw that in Theatre Calgary, is in a car accident, and the understudy has to step in, and that understudy is dynamite. That's a valuable lesson we all learn. Is that in most professional theaters we do have understudies, but the understudy, until COVID came along, was really a thing of the past. People didn't want to understudy. And now I think the rule, or rule of thumb, with Calgary theatre companies is that if you have understudies, they will get at least 2 performances. Whether it be their matinees or whatever, they will have a chance to be on stage. And rightfully so. My good heavens, memorizing all the direction, the blocking of the lines, the everything, they deserve to be on stage.
Yes, they do. And also I think the framework for what is health and not health is changed in a different generation. I think in my younger years, I saw a lot more theaters who are on stage who maybe, were vomiting in the wings and then coming on and still pulling off the show. And I used to think that was always a good thing, but I think I've mellowed on some of that now, where I think having understudies is
a better idea.
Is a better way to go. Yeah. It's such a financial cost for the mid-range theater companies, though. If you're in the A houses, it's one thing, but if you're in the B, C, E, F houses, that's
because you have to pay those people.
Yeah. It's a big cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
you know what? Having had understudies, as a director, it's difficult also, because you have to let those people practice. You have to let them rehearse. And so, there you are, you take your main actors out and you put your understudies in.
Yeah, so you actually need more rehearsals.
You certainly do.
Which is hard, because under a lot of the union rules, you're still only have this amount of time, but now the requirements are such. I'm such a big proponent of having longer rehearsal periods. And I think that's something that community theater has over professional theater.
Yes. And it's wonderful in community theater when you say, and certainly I did with my latest play, they were ready a week before. They needed to be in the theater. They had outgrown the rehearsal hall, and they needed to be in the theater. That's a wonderful feeling that, and as you're saying, that's because we had so much rehearsal time. We were rehearsing during the summer, so we added 2 extra weeks of rehearsal because we knew people were going to be taking time off, but they were ready. So that's the same thing with professional theater. If you gave them an extra week's rehearsal, it would be a lot less of a chore and it is, boy, to get that thing up in 2 weeks. Ooh.
Yeah. And also on the professional side, I feel sorry. I feel a great deal of empathy for the actors, because they have to learn their lines almost before the first day of rehearsal.
Oh yes, they have to come with the lines memorized.
And so that changes the process for some people, because
it does, because some people memorize the lines best when they know they're blocking.
Yeah.
And that's what people say. Well, I'll memorize my lines as soon as I have my blocking. But you in a professional theater, you want that day one. Yes.
Yeah, there's no time. Yeah. And if you're not in the business, you don't know these things.
Exactly. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Number 27. A theater review is confident. The review doesn't offer up tentative opinions. It takes a position. And that's something you really learn with time. Yeah. You've got to take that position and you've got to stand by it. And it's not wishy-washy. Your review can't, just as a production can't be wishy-washy, a review can't be either.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things I've learned from being edited. In the beginning, I didn't have an editor. And now I have an editor who calls me to task on that more often, which is maybe you want to take out the maybes here, you know?
Well, I'm very lucky because my two editors are very, very good. And that's because they're writers as well. And they'll say, you don't want to say this. Or, I don't understand what you're saying. And then you explain it to them and they go, but that's not what you're saying.
Yes.
You know, that may be what you want to say, but that's not what this says. And so they make you sound good in print. I mean, I've certainly over the years, and I've had people who weren't editors, they just threw the thing on, the page. And you read it and you go, oh no, didn't you catch that? Yeah. There's nothing worse than reading yourself in print and something wrong.
Yes.
You go, oh no.
The benefit of having it online is you can go in and fix things.
Yeah, you can. Yes, and yes, yeah, and that's what my editor always says. Well, at least we can fix you online.
Online, yeah.
We can't fix you in print, but we can fix you online. Yes. I remember having put John Belushi instead of Jim Belushi.
Oh, no.
Yes, yes. And, you thought, oh, nobody will catch that. Oh, hundreds of calls to the paper, yeah.
Oh, yes. 28. A theater reviewer understands risk. The theater company will incur or assume levels of risk, either by the people they hire or by the work being presented. A reviewer or critic is aware of this risk and able to assess to what extent the risk paid off.
A good example of that is Alberta Theatre Projects when they brought in Paul Gross for The Seafarer, okay? And people said, but he was he's in such a silly role. That was his choice. That was not the role he was offered, but that was the role he wanted to do. And he said, I didn't want to be the star. I was the star anyway. I was the name. They were selling it on me, but I didn't want to also, be the main actor. And that's, you have to understand that, and people would say, but the others were so much better than him. They were in the showier roles. That's something as a reviewer you understand, that role is that he chose to do is a minor role compared to the others, but it was something he wanted to do. That's a huge risk. That's a huge risk. You have to know that he wanted to do that role, but unless you were told that, you didn't know. You didn't know it was his choice. That he was trying to be gracious about the whole thing. And so that's something which, should reviewers know that or shouldn't they know that?
Yes, inadvertently we can't not know that a lot of the time because we're part of the community.
Because we're part of the community,
we understand what that is. I think I see the financial risk sometimes when the mandate is a little wobbly, or they want to push a different kind of genre in the theater, or if they want to expand, and so they take a risk into something and then they see if it pays off as well, and that has a financial repercussion as well.
Theatre Calgary does that a lot of the time when they produce the big musicals, the ones that they hope are going to Broadway. And that's a whole different creature that they're creating when they do those plays. Like, what was the one they just did, the Bette Midler thing? That play they were producing with the hopes of it going to Broadway. And so that's a whole different kettle of fish. That's a whole different thing than just putting on a musical for your audiences.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a huge financial risk. Luckily, they had backers who were willing to come in and give the money. But if they were trying to do that on their own, you just can't do that, is what I'm saying. And that's what you're saying, is that you're trying to push your theater in a different way, so you're taking a big risk by putting money into something that is very, very iffy to begin with.
Yes.
A theater review understands discrepancies in an actor's status. A reviewer will be aware of actors who have high status, either by level of success reached in their career or celebrity, and the effect that has on the cohesion of the presentation. We don't have that as much now as we did with Stage West in its early years, when they brought in the TV actors and set them in. Whoa, you had this, people were coming to see this celebrity, so the poor director was making sure that actor was always center stage. Literally, that actor was always center stage. And that's a very difficult thing. We don't have that as much anymore, where one person is, people are coming to see that one person.
I think that was an interesting time in Calgary, because the responses of people seeing those shows, they would reference them by the name of the person who was in the show. They would say to me, "Oh, I saw that Radar O'Reilly show."
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
I saw the Klinger show.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's all that they went for. But that's not why a reviewer is there. A reviewer is not there to see the celebrity. A critic is not going to be swayed by any kind of status of.
And that certainly, I think that we're not guilty of that. When we're reviewing, when they do bring in, and there's still, we've seen one or two times when an actor from Toronto has been brought in for one of our major theaters, and we're reviewing them like we would review the other actors in the play.
Yeah.
That's very important. You don't zero in on that actor.
Yeah.
Or actor.
Yeah.
In the old days, people did want to know what you said about their favorite MASH actor being in Calgary. Yes, they did. They really did. But nowadays, people are a little more circumspect than they were. They're going to the theater for the full experience. It's that idea of the play is the thing now.
I hope you're right.
I
hope you're right.
Yeah. I think that is true.
Yeah.
That people go to see the play rather than to see the actors.
To see the celebrity, yeah. It's difficult, though, because Canada doesn't generate the same kind of status as celebrity as we see to our neighbor to the south, for example. Yeah. And it's one of the things that I find is that I want to shake certain people and go, "Do you know how good this person is? This person is so magnificent. This is so. Yeah. But there's no limo outside for them, and they won't be signing autographs afterwards. Yeah. But they should be in some,
Well, but and as that said, I'm as much to blame for that. When I go to London and I see a TV star or a movie star I'm there. I want to see them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always reference it by the playwrights that I want to go see.
Yes, yeah.
I'm going for the playwrights first. I'm going to see the Willie Russell show. And I don't care who the celebrity is.
I want to see that celebrity.
30. A theater review understands the role of the director. A good play can be directed badly, and a bad script can be directed well. They can also be in harmony. When the direction is complicated by the input of intimacy directors, musical directors, or fight directors, the review will be able to parse out these different elements.
And that's more and more now, we're seeing that in theater. is that we're bringing in these other quote-unquote professionals because, heaven forbid, the director isn't able to direct that love scene. Give me a break, you know. We did it for how many years? And suddenly we have to have a professional come in so that actors feel comfortable. In the old days, if there was any feeling of uncomfortable, the actors told you, I'm not comfortable with this, you know, and you worked it out with them. But it's so hard with a director because if a play doesn't work, if it really doesn't work, it's the director's fault. But if a play works, it's often the actors who did the really well, or the set was wonderful and costumes were great, and yes.
Yeah.
The director really, many reviews, and I've done it myself, I'm as much to blame as anybody, I'll forget to mention the director. You know, and that is so cruel, because without that director, you don't have a play. And as you say, a good play can be badly directed.
Oh, yeah.
And you see that and you go, good heavens. Or a very bad play, not a very bad play, but a bad play can be well directed and it works. A good director will make a weak play, a mediocre play, zing. Yes. And then when you get the two together, when you get something like Theatre Calgary's production of Importance of Being Earnest, when the direction and the play, you know, you got one of the finest plays ever written, and you get it well directed, you go, whoa, yes.
Yeah, it's a great match. And it's hard in the rehearsal hall too, because you have a certain chunk that's taken from the movement director, a certain chunk that's taken for intimacy, a certain chunk that's taken for choreo, a certain chunk that's taken for fight. Like it gets very piecemeal sometimes.
Yeah.
And then our job is to look at sometimes what those pieces are and do they coalesce. And sometimes the overall director has lost the battle because of these piecemeal things.
One of the worst times for me to go to a play is to see what you go, the actors took the play away from the director. You can see that, where each actor is doing really well, but there's no cohesion. So either the director didn't care, or else the actors were stronger than the director. And that often happens in professional, you know, like certainly in New York and London, where your actors are being paid more than your director.
Yeah.
So who are you going to listen to?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If you're paying an actor to come in and do the play, and they're Jake Gyllenhaal, you know, a director, unless a director is a very big director, you're going to watch Jake do his thing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, as a director, it's very, very difficult when you cast another director in your play.
Yes.
Yeah. Because often, you know, unless that actor is then only an actor and not a director, it's very, very difficult, because you've got different people wanting to, you know, make a scene work. A theater review is complete. An assessment is formed from seeing the entire show, arriving on time and staying to the end. And boy, there have been times when an intermission comes and you see people leaving and you go, I want to leave with them. Oh dear God, I want to leave with them. But yes, and that's true. And I have to be very careful not to arrive there at the last moment. You know, that's a tendency that, you know, you go, oh, well, I've got a lot of time. I can, you know, you've got to be there. You've got to be in your seat. And I make a point of that, being in my seat at least 10 minutes ahead of time, just to sit there. Whereas if you're running in at the last moment, you're still out in the parking lot. You're not thinking of the experience you're having. You're still thinking about parking your car and running down. Yes. So you're right. The reviewer should arrive ahead of time.
Yeah. I like to take that a moment as the lights are coming down to just sort of check in with myself and think about what my expectations are, or if I, what am I willing to receive, to make myself open to things? Because I often go into something with very preconceived ideas about the play that I'm going to see, and then it doesn't mesh up with what I'm seeing.
Was that a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have to, because in Calgary, a standing ovation is, it doesn't mean anything anymore. And so you have to, when that happens, you have to erase it. You have to, whereas when it's for real, when you want to stand too, that's a whole different creature. You're trying to, and in standing ovations, in certain plays, productions do warrant standing ovation, but it's when the lead actor or actress comes out that you should be standing, not at the beginning when the first, the first people. It's you're trying to say something, but as I say, nowadays, way too many standing ovations. They're meaningless. Unfortunately, they're not meaningless to the actors, but they are meaningless in terms of the play.
Yes. In one of my postcard reviews, I was able to say, Calgary audiences who are famous for standing at the drop of a hat remain seated.
That's rare. That's rare. That tells you something.
That tells
you everything.
It tells you everything, and it tells the people reading the review everything as well.
Yes.
A theatre review is a record. Theatre is the only art form that is impermanent. A review is a historical recording of events that happen on stage. Future producers can use the review as a measure to which to consider possible productions. A review has value after the show has closed, not only to participants, but to researchers, writers, publishers, doctoral thesis candidates, historians.
That's very true. And our theaters run for what, a month max, right? So your reviews come out much sooner than mine. Mine usually wait a full week before they come out. So they last, as you say, beyond the run of the show. People are reading the reviews. I have people say, I remember I just read your review for such and such, but I wrote that 5 years ago. Yes, but we're doing it in such and such yeah.
I often wish that all of your reviews were online and archived so that we could search different words and reference them. That the issue with print is that it takes so much more effort to go to the microfiche and to the library and get that early stuff. Although there's a lot of gems in there, and it's worth it if you're researching something specific.
I've had people, text me or phone me and say, I need your review that you wrote.
Yeah.
If you can't find it, I can't find it. You probably have an easier way of finding it than I do. And I don't. They assume that I keep my reviews in a special, and I don't.
Yeah.
I've written so many, as you pointed out,
Thousands.
so many of them that, yes.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun to read something you wrote 40 years ago. I mean, it really is, yeah. And I've had people who have gone on to other careers, and they've sent me reviews that somebody was doing a show, a clown show in Germany, sent me a review I wrote of his clown show in Calgary 40 years ago, and you're going, what? And then you read it and you go, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a really special thing.
Yes, it is, yes. Those reviews are there if you want to look for them.
Yes.
A theater review is an understanding of ability. The review understands the difference between those working in the community shows, academic productions, passion projects, semi and professional shows. This understanding is another lens that the reviewer brings to the show. And that's really, really true. I don't know about you, but I certainly go to a community production, to a university production, differently than I go to Theatre Calgary and Alberta Theatre projects, and yes. And I even go differently to Stage West than I do to Theatre Calgary and Alberta Theatre projects. It's a different experience. It's a, you know, as a director for those shows, you're aware when you're directing it that there's that audience out there is still going to have their dessert or their, you know, their drinks with them. It's a different audience than if you're at, mind you, now they're allowing people to bring drinks into and food. My gosh, the number of people eating potato chips at Theatre Calgary, I can't believe it.
I know, the noise pollution.
Yes, yes.
I think for me, the caveat is in community theatre when I see people who still haven't put the work in. And I feel like there's an expectation that I'm supposed to overlook certain things, and I just
Refuse to.
Refuse to.
Yeah, no, and that whole thing of, well, you're coming opening night, we're not ready yet. Yeah, yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. You know, I've had people in communities, well, if you'd have seen it on closing night, it was fantastic. No, sorry. People are paying the same amount of money opening night as closing night. And I don't know if you were old enough to remember when in community theater that closing night was the night you played tricks on everybody.
Yes, yes.
And that is something I have, in every one of my productions, I said, if you do that, that's it. You will never work in one of my productions again. Because that's not fair to the audience. They're paying good money to see you fooling around on stage.
Yeah.
And that used to be, I mean, that used to be the thing. People, yeah, they used to put real liquor in the, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between being incredibly amateur. If you're an amateur, you're doing that, but you can be in community theater and not be an amateur.
And you know what? That when I work in community theater, that's the thing that I stress, is that you've got to be as professional as you possibly can. Yeah. And you always want to put in the one or two really strong actors, because they will raise the level of everyone else. And that is their job, is to raise the level of so that when reviewers go to see those plays, what you're seeing is still as good as they can possibly be. Give your audience 100%. Yes.
The one thing I have decided after, I don't know at what point it was, after 5 years in, I decided not to review people producing plays under the age of 18. I just thought that was not worth either my time or their time yet, that they weren't ready to hear what I have to say. And
they wouldn't take it.
And they wouldn't take
it. No, they because they still have that view of themselves, that, yes.
And it's interesting, we focus in our community a lot on mansplaining, but there's a lot of youth-splaining that happens where I'm being schooled as an older audience member, which is just a barrier for...
Yeah, well, the old church basement theater as well, where people literally went out, and that's a whole different kettle of fish, to have fun. They went to do the... Yes, you should have fun doing a play, but that shouldn't be the object of it.
Yeah.
When you're cast in a play, your job is to give this production the best possible, and so that when audiences come and see it, they're blown away by it. They go, "Wow, that was really good," and for that price, because you got to be very careful now. Theater's getting expensive.
Yes.
You know, the old days of charging $10, you can't do that. You know, $30 is about break even. So anybody under, you know, doing the $25 a thing, they're still giving you really good value. But people still want the $20 tickets for community theater. And they don't realize that the community theater still has to pay royalties for those plays, they have to pay for rental for the theaters, they have to pay all of that. And they have to break even.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah. You can't pass the hat anymore.
Nope.
34. A theatre review is ironically non-promotional. A review is separate from a promotional piece. It is not an extension of marketing. A review may be co-opted by a theatre company to promote a play, but the purpose of the review isn't inherently promotional.
Exactly. And that, with critics being accused of writing so that the words can be used above the theatre. And you see that certainly in London. You're walking, and these quotes, and of course, the wonderful thing is that many of those quotes are taken out of context. That's not fully what the reviewer said. So even a negative review you can take a positive, yeah.
I was astounded at how bad this play was.
Yeah.
I was astounded. Truly, that, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had quotes used certainly in movies, and you go, yeah, but you didn't, the rest of the sentence, yeah. Yeah. But that's what a good marketing person does, is they look for the glowing words, yeah. Yeah, and I think it's hard for all theaters to understand the role of the critic in the process, so that we're not there to rah for your theater company.
Mm-hmm.
That's not why we're there.
If we happen to say the words you want, by all means use them. But yeah,
absolutely.
But we're not there, as you say. We're not part of that process.
No.
Yeah.
No.
A theater review understands the relationship of practitioners. A reviewer can analyze the interrelationship between specific designers, actors, and directors as they co-create one cohesive, or not so, show. They understand the overlapping webs, synergy, interaction, or clash of theater practitioners coming together for one purpose. And that's, at the end I always go, oh, I haven't said anything about the technical. And that's so important that you may not, at the beginning, if you start talking about the sound and the costumes and things, then there's something wrong. When a reviewer starts talking about the technical first, then you know that either the technical overshadows everything, which oftentimes we see, especially with projections. That's the new thing right now, and certainly set designers are so excited about the fact that they have a projection wall, and they can project anything. They can send you all over the world at that theater. If that's the focus point of your review, then there's something wrong with the script or the direction or the acting if you have to zero in. But as you're saying here, but you must remember that there's a whole group of people. It's not just the actors. It's not just, they're the obvious ones, and the director, perhaps. But all of that technical thing is there.
And I think it's understanding the different factions within the play itself. So if we know, for example, we have improvisers doing this thing in the play, it's different. If we know, this is a play that's being told by these puppeteers, so that there's these different components that come together that sometimes work wonderfully and beautifully, and sometimes not so much.
Well, they're at odds.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are at odds.
And
yeah.
clashing.
And you have to. It's ironic that you mentioned puppetry, because there's one that's very dangerous, because it's like children, animals, and puppets. Put them on stage, and they're going to draw focus. They're going to draw focus. And you have to be very careful as a director that focus is what you want, that you want them to draw focus at those moments. If they're drawing too much focus away from the real actors, then you've hit and miss, yes.
Yes. Or if you have actors who are being asked to do something with puppets that they haven't had years of training in as well, and so you're throwing them to the wolves as well, and you're seeing things that are, that should have taken another 6 months in rehearsal.
Yes. When I did my piece for the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, he said there's puppets, but there's also actors, and actors are not puppeteers. So you need extra time to teach those actors how to be puppeteers.
Yeah.
Something I never thought of.
Right.
Something I thought, you just throw a puppet at an actor and say, there, that's yours, do it. And as he pointed out, no, that's not the case. It's a real process.
And hard within, again, that limited structure which we give rehearsal period, right?
Yeah.
You have to learn a whole new skill set.
Well, how about people who have to be in a musical and they have to sing, dance, act?
And play a musician.
And play instrument.
Instrument.
Yeah.
The quadruple threat.
The quadruple threat is someone very, very special.
Yeah. 36. A theater review understands the duality of purpose. A reviewer understands the costume versus the suit, the prop versus the real object, the set versus the dramatic backdrop.
Very much so. And that's really important with costume versus the suit. You don't say, in community theater, that's where it's dangerous, where you say, do you have any clothes at home that'll work? Yike! No. Unless that person brings the suit and says, this is my suit, will it work? And then the costume person looks at it. But not for the costume person to say, do you have something at home that'll work? Yes, that you feel comfortable in. That's one of the worst things, yes.
Yes.
And we all know, hopefully, that props are not the real thing, so that you don't have the real knife on stage. Otherwise, if you know that's a real knife, then that's going to be a whole different experience for the audience. They're going to be very, very worried that
Or if they know that it's not, it takes away from the drama as well, right?
Yes, if it's not realistic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that I find that detracting. I mean, I have I think a personal bugaboo with plastic glasses when they go, let's do cheers, and then you hear clunk.
Yeah.
Or the e-cigarettes, which are never go down in size and always make a metallic sound when you put them in the ashtray. It takes you out of that moment of realism.
Yeah. Yes, and what I'm always excited about is when they drink on stage. Is that real liquor? Well, of course it's not. But now you have such wonderful props people who can make the wine bottles look as, the cork is in there. And in the old days, before, we used to just have the wine bottles were already open, that sort of thing. But now you watch them take that and you go, wow, they're going to drink that. That's still not real wine. But as you say, if it's the plastic glasses or the open wine bottle, that takes away from the reality of, yes. And the knife that doesn't look like a knife, yes.
Yes. And fire is another thing too. Fire can be done very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
Or very, very poorly.
I always say, let's see if we can do this scene without the fire. Yeah. A theater review understands expectation. A review isn't let down by hype. The reviewer works on being open to theatrical experience and writes about what was versus what they thought should have been. Yes, and that's with the whole idea with hype, is you have to completely wash that away when you're going to a play. And that's why it's very tricky when a production comes in that is played somewhere else and has had all these wonderful reviews. And so you're going with a completely different expectation if you paid attention to that hype, yes. And if it doesn't live up to it, oh, for heaven's sake. And what you have to realize is that the original reviewers, that was the first time they saw it.
Yes.
So they were excited. Yes. Yeah. But yes.
Yes, I think this is personally, as a theater critic, the thing that I probably struggle with the most. But I'm aware that I struggle with it, and so then I tried my best to overcome it. And one of the things I like is not getting involved in a much hype. Like, I really try and keep it at bay. I know there are a lot of people who are just junkies for all that stuff, and I try to push it away as much as possible.
It's like you said, theater reviewers read each other's reviews, but not until after you've written yours. Because that, I mean, the tendency then is to mirror that review, or the exact opposite, say, well, I'm going to be different than, yes. So that the other reviewers don't exist until after you've written your review, yes.
Yeah, I think that was, for me personally, such a delight is in finding out how similar we were without me knowing about it ahead of time.
Yes,
and that we agree so often, and the 5 or 6% that we don't agree is just really interesting and really meaty. And
then you wonder why.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we can have and I know we have great conversations about that in the Carter Rosebud, where we can go for 3 hours and debate the minutiae of things.
Some of the things, the plays, yes.
Which is my greatest pleasure to do, to dig into all of that, because there's nobody else that I can do that with except a critic, a fellow critic, and
because people you can't talk to people unless they've seen X number of shows.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we see so many. What is it, 80 of them a year?
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot of shows, a lot of plays to see in 1 year. Yes.
I was just recently asked by somebody, would I come in and teach her kids how to be reviewers? I said no.
I've been asked that so many times. Yeah, no.
No, you have to have a body of understanding and work. It's like the 10,000 hours. You have to have the 10,000 hours before you become a theater critic. Mm-hmm. You can't pick up your pen day one and call yourself a theater critic and
that's what too many people are doing.
Oh,
yeah.
I know.
What they want is how to write a review, not how to review. How to write a review. Yeah. I'll teach you that. I mean, I'll give you pointers on how to, but not how to review a show.
No.
Because you have to bring too much.
Yes.
I remember when I was changing, they wanted me to do purely movies, and I was supposed to teach a new person how to review theater. And that person didn't have a background in theater. I didn't know who Beckett was, who didn't know, yeah. Thank God they knew who Shakespeare was. But they didn't know who Beckett was, so, you know.
And did they get your review?
Yes.
Oh, I think they may have reviewed me.
Probably. Probably.
38. A theater review doesn't have a vested interest. The review doesn't serve to benefit the reviewer financially or in any other way that is unethical.
I think what you mean there is that a playwright or a director or an artistic director comes to you and says, will you, yes, yeah. I mean, you can be paid for a review.
Of course.
But you cannot, the theater cannot, yes.
Or influence us in any way,
yeah.
Which, have you felt pressure by that? I felt pressure a couple times by people to...
Yes, I have, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, where, yeah, they're expecting you to, yeah. We did this and this and this, and you'll really like this and this and this, and we did, you know. Don't tell me what you did, show me.
Yeah.
It's that, don't tell me, show me. If I see that when I'm reviewing it, fine.
Yeah.
But don't tell me about it. Yeah.
I feel the same way about director's notes. I only read the director's notes after I've written the review, because if you tell me the lens with which I'm supposed to see it, that's not important to me at all. I just review what I saw, not what you want me to have seen.
Yeah. I saw something where you were saying that a director said that the play with such and such and such, and you say, thank God it wasn't. and that's true. I mean, this esoteric thing that directors often have in their director's notes, and you go, give me a break. There's not a single person in the audience that would even have considered that.
Yes.
And you have to tell us that? Excuse me, if you have to tell us that, then you know, again, it's that, don't tell me, show me. If at the end of I say, wow, you know, this was a commentary on poor marriages. Yeah, I didn't see that originally when I read it, but and I see that, good, but don't tell me that.
I find it in university and
Oh,
post-secondary productions as well, the talk, the words that are used.
And you see that, but you know what? It's creeping into our professional theater too, reading those directors' notes. Oh, come on, we don't, you know, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
You know, tell me why you like the play. Yes, that's fine.
Sure.
But don't in your director's notes tell me what I'm supposed to take out of the play. Again, unless it's on the stage, that's of no use whatsoever.
Yeah.
You telling me. If you can't put it on stage, don't put it in your notes.
Yeah.
39. A theater review considers how works land on the audience. There is an understanding of season ticket holders' expectations. They may be age or gender considerations. It is a measure of how the art is intended for that specific audience and understands that no piece of work is ubiquitous. That certainly is the case with storybook theater, where you know that the audience, your audience, is children. So I always look at it and say, all right, have you directed it for children, or have you directed it for their parents? And that to me is a very big thing, especially with children's theater. We're going to see that over the holidays again. The professional theaters are all doing family-oriented things. And is it really family entertainment? I remember Theatre Calgary's The Secret Garden. You know, people brought their children to see that. Just because a play is about children doesn't mean it is for children. And there were so many bored children at that production. And you know, and again, storybook has to be careful that just because a play has children in it and is about children doesn't mean it is for children. It may be for teenagers, it may be for adults, but it isn't for children. And that's really important, where that lands. You know, if you're, when Alberta Theatre Projects did Charlotte's Web, you know, and the talking chickens and things, there were things in it for children. And that's what I end up doing, is I'm watching, are the children engaged in this? Or are they staring at the lights and finding where things are coming from? Yeah.
I find fun for the whole family is a lie, because
Yeah.
what entertains a 3-year-old isn't going to entertain me, and vice versa. The only exception to that is pantomime, which works on the 2 different levels. That's the only genre where adults can go and get the double entendre and get the politics and all of the things that are being thrown at them, and the cross-casting and all of the jokes and the nudge-nudge and the wink-wink, and the kids are getting Peter Pan and fairies and all of the fun stuff.
But you're talking about the real pantomime.
Real pantomime,
yes,
like
yes.
London pantomime.
Yes, yeah. That's very true. Family entertainment is a very, very difficult thing, because adults don't like what little children like, and vice versa.
Yeah. And that's a marketing problem, I think.
Yes, but again, as an artistic director, you're looking at what plays really are out there that the whole family, you know, I still have people say, oh, we love The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's because there was so much going on in that production that kept children interested. but I've been to even the Christmas Carol, where you got to be very careful with very young children. They're bored after the ghosts. They love it when the ghosts first come on, but then when all that talking goes on, they're bored with it.
And also, how long can you hold their attention, right?
Yes.
Because 3-act structure versus a 45-minute play, sometimes producers don't take that into consideration. The kids do not want to sit there for 3 hours.
Well, remember that Walt Disney said that 88 minutes was the attention span of a child. And no Disney cartoon, while he was alive, went over 88 minutes. Now they're 2.5 hours long. And you can, I took the grandchildren to see Planet of the Apes, and I loved it. And, the littlest one said to me, Papa Louie, when are we going home? They had seen the monkeys. They knew now the whole thing with the monkeys. They didn't care about the plot.
Yes.
Yeah.
40. A theatre review considers geographical regions. The critic understands that moving a show from state to state, province to province, and country to country will have a different sensibility or outcome. This can either enhance or detract from the original intention of the piece.
And what do you mean by that? Yeah.
I think there are things that play well in Eastern Canada that don't work on the prairies. I think there are prairie plays that aren't necessarily ubiquitous. I think that there are shows that come up from the States that leave us cold here. And I think there are Canadian shows that don't do as well in other places. And so what we have to do is, as theatre critics, is really look at that piece and figure out, does this piece belong here? Is there enough of a universal language that we can still access and that everything is appreciated and enjoyed? And sometimes that doesn't work, and we understand why.
That's very true with some of the political plays. What works in Calgary politically won't necessarily work politically in Ontario. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that happen. We've sent plays from Alberta theatre projects that were politically, and they bombed in Toronto. They didn't find them funny. And it's because it's very specific to the region. Mm-hmm. One of the, W.O. Mitchell is very much a prairie playwright. Yeah. And he really, and you move him over to Rosebud, he really works. You go, wow, this is as if it was written for this theater. Mm. That sort of thing. Yes.
Yeah. Rural versus city, I think, was what you've just talked about as well. I mean, the Drawer Boy works. It works in a rural setting and it works in a city setting because we understand those characters. And there are people who can push past those boundaries. I mean, a Ronnie Burkett show can be set on the prairies, but it can travel internationally.
Yes.
Because he's such a
because of his talent.
His talent, yes. And his mastery with words, and
yes.
He can make that happen. But it's not always the case.
Not always. No.
And
you see plays. Well, Rosebud again. You'll see plays at Rosebud, and you think they should be brought to Calgary, and you wonder why aren't they doing? Because they wouldn't work in Calgary. Mm. It's not the same audience. People go out there and have that wonderful supper, and you're ready for it. And then you go in that nice little teeny wee theater that as a recreation of the original thing, and you've driven out there into that. It works. But then you see plays like that, and you bring them here in Calgary. It becomes too provincial.
Yes.
Too rural. Too corny. Too folksy.
Yeah.
Number 41. A theatre review considers the audience response collectively or individually. The review is aware of the audience and how they respond to the piece. The reviewer will note to what degree the audience engages, how they engage, and what this means to the art. This may be in sync or not with the response of the reviewer. This is sometimes you think, am I the only one who's enjoying this, or am I the only one who's not enjoying this? And I have people who say, Louis, as soon as you say it was a real crowd pleaser, that means you didn't like it. And I suppose that's true. But you can't ignore the fact that the audience around you is reacting to this piece. And it's not engaging you, but it's engaging them. That doesn't make it a great piece of art, but it also is working for certain people. And one of the reasons that I wish I weren't going opening night is that is not a real audience. We see them with opening night audiences, and that is not a real audience. Those aren't people who've paid to see the play. They are friends of the theater, friends of the actors, friends. So it's a different response. And I have occasionally had to see a play on a different performance, on a different night, and boy, is it different.
And sponsors coming as well.
Yes.
You know, giving swaths of seats away to people who they hear their names in the pre-show appreciation. They're all excited, and then they're responding differently to things than what we would. And sometimes it's delightful to be the only person that I have been the only person in the room that stood. And that's an interesting position to be in, where I just appreciated so much the artistry and the work that was being done. And it wasn't a good fit for that particular theater company, and the rest of the audience was going, this isn't what we usually see. And I was going, yes, it's not what we usually see, but what was there was brilliant.
Yeah. And I think it is important for us to be aware, as you say, of how the audience is responding. I think that's important because the play was not created for us. The play is not created for critics. The play is created for the audiences that go to that theater. And a good artistic director knows what that audience wants. And so, especially like with dinner theater, they know their audiences want a specific kind of entertainment. And you and I may not like that kind of, musical concert thing, but the audiences do. And so what you do is you see how well did they do it this time. They've got a different director. So how well did they do their dinner theater show? The same thing goes a lot with Theatre Calgary. You know which shows they have chosen for their audiences. You know which, and then you see the ones that they're throwing in there and hoping that the audiences respond to it. And those are usually the ones we ended up liking more. But you have to be aware of how that audience is reacting. So yes, if I throw that in, it was a real crowd pleaser. It means that I wasn't with the crowd at that moment.
I remember one year I was given very graciously a pass to see the Calgary Theatre's festival that they used to have. You remember the big children's festival?
Yes.
Where it had international people coming in, and it was being curated beautifully. And the artistic director at that time was Kate Newby, and it was amazing. And I really had my eyes open to how good children's theater could be coming from Europe and the different sensibilities. And one of the things that I always wished I could do was stand at the edge of the theater and take a video of the kids so that the performers could see when they were losing them and when they weren't losing them. And kids are so honest because as adults we're trained, we're still the whole time. And as you know from talking about, your Papa Louie experiences, when the kids are shifting focus and when they're bored,
when they want to go home,
they will want to go home, and and even in their body language, when they're leaning forward, when they're riveted, when you can hear a pin drop, it's just so telling.
What was the one Storybook did? Kanuki's Island.
Yeah.
The kids were absolutely mesmerized. They were with it. Now, I know that both Aiden and Declan had read the novel, so they knew where it was going. But they loved it, and they loved the puppets that did the dog and the orangutans. They loved all of that. The director, the designers had taken that into consideration, and they took the children on a journey. I remember them again with the Elf, the musical. I mean, so beautifully done. They were enchanted by it. And as you're saying, they're right. Children are honest. They'll let you know when they're not enjoying it, when they're not engaged. They're not like us who pretend we're engaged and we smile and we laugh, we chuckle, and yeah.
Well, we don't pretend. We're just polite.
And that's that thing where when you laugh, when your laughter is real, when you're engaged, when you're real, when you hear people laughing and not smiling and chuckling and that, then you know they're being polite. Yes.
Yes. There's nothing better, I think, than the roar of a crowd when there's something funny happens, where you get that sort of wah kind of feeling. There's nothing like that. It's just, it's an elixir that you just can't get anywhere else.
When the actors have to stop because and hold character because the audience is laughing so hard. Yeah.
Yes.
That happens a lot with the British sex farce, and as you say, the pantomime, where people just lose themselves completely. It's silly stuff, and people laugh and laugh and laugh. We that's what we want. That's why we go to theater, is to laugh, to cry, to scream, to gasp. That's why we go. Yeah.
And conversely, the moment of suspense, that real moment of suspense, which is so hard to get in theater because everything is safe. We know nobody's really going to die, and it's unlike movies, right? Where there's
it's like with Vertigo's the Brothers Paranormal, when you discover something in Act One, and you go, oh no! The whole audience did that. It was a universal thing. They had been conned. They didn't know that character was a ghost, and boy, that is something. And that's why we go to theater, for those surprises. For those, when we go to theater to see something like the 49 Steps, where two actors are playing simultaneous characters, where half their costume is a woman and half their we're laughing, we're joking, we're looking at those actors and what they're doing. That's the magic of theater, is to make us take that journey. Too often we just, as you say, we're just being polite and we just sit and watch. That's not the way we should go to theater. That's not the way we're meant to go to theater. Shakespeare certainly didn't mean us to be quiet in theater. No, that's why he was playing to the pit, and they were very rowdy. Yes.
I think it's often, I'm not a sports person at all, but I see the same sort of catharsis in sports, where you have a whole arena of people who are in celebration mode because the person has done the thing with the
their
puck.
Team is winning.
And so you have this, and that's what theater can be too. This is why going to theater is different than watching something on Netflix, is you're in community with people all having a shared experience. And
it's always been exciting for me to talk to people, and then we're talking adults, who've never been to theater before, and they go to a play, and they go, oh my gosh, see what you've missed? And when people say, I've never been to a live theater, you go, you have no idea what you're missing. No idea at all. I was very, very lucky to be very young when I started seeing live theater. And that, the lights going down and seeing what was on stage was magic, absolute magic.
Conversely, I've also talked to people who went to one show one time and then discounted theater by the whole, because they had a bad experience.
Bad experience, yeah. You will.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate. Yeah. 42. The theatre review is prompt. A review is written within a short time of viewing so that the memory is fresh, but a short time is passed for reflection. It is a living document while the show is in process. It may even be taken into account during the run of the play, but this isn't the objective.
That's very, very tricky, is that I have to leave that time. I have to leave. And you know what is also important is that I write the review and then go to sleep. I get away from it and then read it again and go, this, you're picking up the grammar mistakes and all that. But also you say, do I really want to say that? And so you're right. The play has to be written, the review has to be written quickly, within a couple of days for sure. Otherwise,
it dissipates.
Yeah. And also, too much other information has come in. And you're forgetting what you actually saw and thought. But if you sit down, like I used to have to, and have it written for the next morning, so that you were writing while you were watching it, or worse than that, things that went to the Jubilee, and I used to have to phone it intermission and give, so they, for the morning paper, for the first edition, they had something to put in. And so you're reviewing the first act of the play,
That's really an anomaly, though, isn't it?
Now it is, thank God, yes.
Yeah.
But in the old days, when there were two papers, when the Sun and the Herald were different entities, you wanted to beat the Herald with that review.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the number of times I did Cirque du Soleil and only did the first half, you know what I mean?
Yeah. One of the things I've really noticed over the 7 years that I've been doing this is that I don't want to go into the party mode afterwards of opening night. I don't want to talk to people. I want to take the play with me, and then as I'm driving home, I'm processing it. I'm processing. I don't like the interruption of that. I don't mind talking to somebody afterwards who I've seen it with for a little bit about it.
But I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to have a 72-hour rule. Now it's close. It's 48 and often 24 hours that I
get that review out.
And also because the runs are so short.
Well, yes.
You know, like it's nothing, and then it's gone again, right?
Yeah. Well, most of the community theaters are only 10 days.
I know. I know.
So you have to get that review out, or it's of no use to them. And people do look for the reviews to see what has been said. I have people say, I won't go until I've read a review. That I don't believe in that at all.
No.
Go, as I say, go to the first performance, because you're never going to see the show that way again. You're never going to see that show.
I think the only exception for me, Louis, is when I go and see something, because I can't see everything all the time, and I go later in the run, and I think this may help this small theatre company. If it is a good review, maybe they use it in a grant application, or they...
Oh, right, absolutely.
So that there's another, it's not...
Which is what people do, yes.
Yeah.
Number 43. A theatre review is work. It is considered a written document, not a casual post. The reviewer has a track record of writing professionally. They get paid for this job. They often belong to a professional association. Yes, it is a job. I mean, we enjoy seeing theater, absolutely. That's a whole different kettle of fish than writing the review. When you sit down and you're aware that you're writing something that's going to stick around, and you don't want to just toss it off. You want it to be well written. As I've told you, I've read things that I've written 20, 30, 40 years ago, and I smile and I go, you know what, Louis, that wasn't so badly written. Yes,
Yeah. I think it helps to be a writer. You and I are both.
Right. Yes.
We're writers to begin with. We're both playwrights, and I think that's a good foundational base right there.
Because we want to be proud of what we've written. Not just proud of what we said, but proud of how it's written. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's what a real review should be well thought out. Yes.
Yes. Oh my goodness, the adjectives.
Yes.
Trying to find the right adjective sometimes.
Where's my thesaurus?
I know, right? But also, it's an investment of time. I mean, personally, I have been paid for my reviews. I'm currently not paid for my reviews because of different circumstances, and so for me, it's a gift of 700 hours that I give to the community.
Okay.
And I do belong to professional associations, but I treat it like a job. And often when I take people to the theater and they're my guests, they say, "Oh, let me buy you a drink in intermission." I don't drink on the job.
Yeah.
I'm at work now. This is my job. Yeah.
That's certainly the way I treat it. Yeah. And I'm like you. I don't like the schmoozing afterwards. It's difficult because the first thing people ask you is, "What did you think?" And you don't. I haven't mulled it over yet. And I try to escape as quickly as I can so I don't have to answer that question.
Yes.
Because I don't know what I thought until, like you say, driving home in the car, mulling it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
44. A theater review reflects continued professional development. Reviewers may participate in panels, discussions, conferences with others whose business it is to do this work. Reviewers often teach. The one thing that I miss now that used to be part of my life was that I used to go to New York and London every year and see what was playing there. I don't do that anymore, and it really is not a financial thing as much as it really is getting on an airplane, and it isn't as easy as it was. But I used to see way more plays. I would go to London every summer and spend the entire summer there, and I would see anywhere between 60 and 70 plays during a summer. Absolutely. That's a lot.
So, I would have that incredible background and so now what I have to do is what you do is read as many new plays as possible. As soon as they're in print, I order them and read them, because you've got to know what's current. You have to know what's current and not wait until the theaters here do them. You have to know that ahead of time.
I'm always shocked by the people who don't read plays. It's such pleasure for me to, first of all, to read a play, but you also have to know how to read a play. You read a play in one sitting, you read it in the same time as the play would take. You're supposed to read it sitting up in the same position that you would to see the play. There's a logic behind that. There's a reasoning behind that. And it's so useful to read all of the wonderful things that have come off of the press. But I also know from the other side of adjudicating for publication, not all the best plays get published sometimes.
No.
And that was shocking to me to find out that happened. And then sometimes they get picked up later when people realize, oh yeah, we really should have published this. But I think adjudicating is, I know we both adjudicate, and you learn as much from plays that are raw as you do from plays that are polished.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's always something to learn, and there's always something to take away from it as a theater critic, as a dramaturg, as a playwright.
But you're right about the fact that you go, wow, people don't read plays. When I was teaching a million years ago, that was part of you taught in 10, 11, and 12 for sure, not just one Shakespeare play, but a modern play that you read. And that was very important because that was the only time students would ever read a play.
Yeah.
And yet, and what I used to do is I used to then assign each of them a play to write about. And they would come and say, you know what? I really enjoyed reading that play. Yes, and you read that on your own. You didn't read that aloud with the rest of the class. Plays are like novels. If you read them, they will, they will entertain you.
And they're faster than novels.
Yes. But you have to teach them to visualize.
Yes.
That's the difficult thing. Is like you and I, because we were raised on that. When we read a play, when I certainly read a play, I am seeing how it's on stage. I am visualizing. I'm not just reading words. I'm reading pictures. And I think that's why people don't read plays, is that they don't know how to picture what they're reading. It's just words to them.
Yes. And sometimes for me, it's almost a split. It's exactly what you said about visualizing it on stage. But there's also a part of my brain that's also visualizing the reality of the situation of what's happening as well.
Yeah.
So
what's going on?
What's going on versus, and how it's, and how it would be staged. But there are different voices speaking different, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I always advocate people do book clubs. They should be doing play clubs.
Absolutely.
I've been
there are people who that I know who have play reading clubs, and they meet once a month. They should meet sooner, once a week, but once a month, and they read a new play.
Yeah. And some people get together and read the plays,
Aloud.
Yeah. In mine, we've been doing ours for nearly 20 years, and we do it like a book club. So we read,
and then you come and talk about it.
And we come and talk about it.
So you've already read the
We've
play.
already read the play, it's wonderful because I get to read the play as a civilian. I don't read it as a playwright or a dramaturg or a critic. I'm reading it for pleasure, and but I don't understand why more people don't buy and read plays.
People don't, book clubs, not enough anymore. That's something that people, there should be so many of those.
And they're so fun.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, plays have been written about book clubs. Yeah, and it's true. I mean, people come and they talk about what they've read and why they like it and why they don't like it. And I have a friend who goes to a book club, and she says, "Oh, this is a horrible book. I don't know why that was shown." But after she's come back from the book club, she said, I have a whole, I didn't see that. Yeah, and that's what's really important, is that other people's ideas and views, you're processing all of that. So that would be the same thing with your play reading. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Number 45. A theater review is in relationship to other reviews. Reviewers often read other reviews, but not until they have written their own. Reviewers are aware of the response to a specific performance or production. Reviewers may also consider theater criticism of the work at the times and places. Yes. Especially on newer plays. I like then to go, thank God for the internet. Thing we didn't have before. And I will call up the reviews of that play the very first production. And that may be 20 years ago, or it may be 5 years ago. But it's very interesting to read the reviews of reviewers who saw it for the first time. And that makes it so interesting. Oh, is that what they saw? Has the play changed since they saw? What I saw was a bit different than what they saw. And I think that's really important.
And to understand the different productions of it as well.
Yes,
the A-house productions, the community productions, the caravan productions, all of the, and how that works. Yeah, I find it fascinating. I also find it fascinating when I think, did I miss something?
So many times.
And
I didn't see that at all. But then I think, was that in my production? The production I saw. Did the director hone in on that? I was thinking of, most recently, Theatre Calgary's Dial M for Murder was originally done in the round. And I'm going, how in heaven's name was that, done in the round? And the reviewers, the 3 reviewers I read, were talking about how exciting it was to be that close to, and you realize they don't have any walls, they don't have any curtains and things like that. They don't have any doors, So yes.
Yeah. And I think you're right about how that is formatted and how it's presented really has an impact. I mean, we just saw a play that was done on the 2 sides, where the point of the stage came into where the audience was, which is a beautiful design,
Yes,
and that's
yes.
the way it should be. But I've also seen plays that are done in the round. They should not be done in the round. Right?
Yes.
It's been detrimental to the production.
And you have to really, really look at that. You have to say, am I doing the play justice by doing it in the round?
Yeah.
Or is this a gimmick?
Yes.
That with doing theater in the round, that's a choice, and it better be a good choice for that play.
And with Alley, the same thing too, because you're looking at a wall of people behind you.
Yes.
And if those people are more interesting than the play, you're sunk.
And that's something very important about the lunchbox one. I did not, after a while, even remember those people being sitting there. I was so glued to what was happening on that little thrust in that imaginary river,
The dock, yeah.
Yeah.
46. A theater review is built on volume. Reviewers travel in search of more shows. Reviewers read plays, see plays on their day off. Reviewers often adjudicate scripts, performances for competitions, funding, or publication.
I think I was a much better reviewer when I was in London every summer seeing those plays. I miss that. And what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, I went to London again. And I was so excited. But I didn't stay there long enough. I was only there about a week, 8 days in London. And you know what? When you see a bad play in London, when you make a bad choice, you go, oh no, why did I choose that instead of, But then when there's so many plays to choose from, whereas when I was there for the whole summer, I knew I was going to see most of what was there,
Right. I think knowing the framework of what world-class theater is, and Canada can have world-class theater as much as Broadway or as
that was
London.
When I used to say that Calgary was producing world-class theater, and people would laugh, and they would say, "Oh, don't be silly." Hello, I spent my summer in London and my Easter in New York. Yes, I know that theater in Calgary is producing the same quality of theater. Yes, absolutely.
What's annoying is when they market that it's world-class theater.
And it's not. Yes. Well, not all. Yes.
I think it's important to adjudicate and as well, because it's a different skill set, but it feeds into reviewing. I find it challenging to adjudicate because I have to process on the spot a lot faster than reviewing, but it still sharpens a different muscle for me, and I actually enjoy the challenge of that.
Adjudicating is I miss it. I used to do that a great deal.
You did it just
more.
last year.
Yes, but I mean, I used to do, a lot more of it. And you're right. You have to be right on the spot, because they want to know right then and there. Yes. Number 47. A theater review matters. It is inherently a professional, analytical response and assessment of the show. It is an anchor in a sea of millions of bytes of information. It may be skewed towards the mass market, the general public, my mother, or the theater community, and it is in service to both the reader and the art form. And I think that's important, the last thing. It works for both the theater and the art form. Not just the readers, but it's working for everyone. And that's a huge responsibility. And so you don't do it lightly. You realize that a lot of people, their jobs, their lives, when they read that, that's themselves they're reading about. And I think that's really important. It's not something you toss off willy-nilly.
Yeah, and it actually brings us full circle to the beginning when I was when we were first talking. Is that theater critics are a part of the artistic process. We're not separate from it. We're the end stage. We're almost like the period at the end of the sentence. We belong to that part. We don't belong to that part.
And we're not the antagonists.
No,
we're not the foes. We're part of the process.
Yes.
Absolutely. And if they see us as foes, if they, and there were theater critics in New York who could close a show in a weekend, and they were the foes of theater. And theaters were they were so condescending to those reviewers. Reviewers should never hold that kind of a threat, that kind of power. They should never have that kind of power, that they can close a show. They can be detrimental to a show. As all of this is pointing out, it's analyzing what is on that stage. It's not saying, this is garbage, this is great. No, it's analyzing what's up there, and it's that the whole thing with criticism is how well did they do what they set out to do. You have to review a farce the same way you review a great drama, because they chose that. And so they are trying to do the best they can. It's not an inferior, and yet a lot of people think of that. I hate it when people say dinner theater is the lowest on the totem. No, it's not. Good dinner theater is as good as any other piece of theater. And we've seen that at Stage West, and we've seen that out at Rosebud, that some of what they offer is way better than the professional theater, is the others, yes.
I think the thing that's misunderstood too is in the same way that when an actor auditions for behind a panel of people who are judging them, the people behind the table want the actor to do well. They really are willing the actor to do well. And when we go to theater, absolutely, we want them to do well.
We don't want it to be bad.
We don't.
And Caroline, no one sets out to create a bad production. No one. If it ends up that way, it's because of a lot of things that happened along the way. But no one sets out to write a bad play, to produce a bad play, to act badly. No one sets out to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's what you have to take into consideration. When we go to see a play, we're hoping for the best. We're hoping for the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the wonderful things that we can do as critics is celebrate excellence. Mm-hmm. That's what we can bring to the party, is we can shine a spotlight in a way and say, look how fantastic this was. Isn't this a great thing?
Yeah, yeah. And we have to remember that those people who put the show together is like the song, "Let Me Entertain You." Mm-hmm. That's what they set out to do. And so we're saying, how well did you do it?
Yes. Well, I'm so grateful that you could spend this time to do this with me. When we often drive out to theater in Rosebud and we're in the car on the way, I wish we had a tape recorder that we could tape record some of this conversation. And then I'm so glad that you were able to share all of your passion and your professionalism to do this, and your time to do this project.
And it's always fun to think about the things you do. You just take it for granted after a while, but there's a lot goes into it. Yeah.
Well, I also wanted you to know that I think that people change when they see something and they want that thing, and that's what can change them in the trajectory of their lives. And it was seeing you on a panel with at a conference that was a national conference talking about theater criticism that made me go, I want to do this too. And it was you speaking about having a macro perspective of theater. At that time, as a theater practitioner, I was really focused on the nuance, the comma, the gravel on the stage, the moment, the turning, everything. And what I really wanted to have was this big overview and oversight. And I was so inspired by that panel that it changed my life, and now look at me.
Oh, wow.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome.